It's another video. Well, I'm going to attempt it anyway. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the volunteers that have been distributing leaflets, spreading the For Britain message on social media, and being out in all sorts of weathers, canvassing for what we believe is right and fair. In the meantime, what I would like to do is have a look at some of the things that have risen recently. Well, first and foremost, in Dylan-esque fashion, we've got lies. There are bigger lies. There's a little lie, there's a white lie, and then there's Labour leaflets. In this current leaflet, Steve Melia talks about improving our environment and green spaces. He talks about the work that he's done in Whitecrest, which I'm sure the friends of Hollywood would appreciate listening to, and the residents of Whitecrest be interested to know exactly what he's done. Community groups and community people have done all this hard work, and this Labour gentleman seems to be taking credit for it, and it's wrong. The same with the friends of Red House Park. I mean, they must be absolutely chuffed at the amount of work this Mr. Melia has been doing. It's them that have pushed for new pathways. It's them that's cleared up the some wooded areas. It's them that's looking at the bedding areas. It's them that push for more developments and more money to come from the developer. It's the council that allowed Red House Park to go to the developer despite a petition wanting to keep it in community use. And at the same time, Smethwick, Bearwood, Lightwoods Park were receiving millions in funding to do the house up, but not in Red House. That gets passed on to the developer, which seems as though it was given to the developer for next to nothing. There's no Section 106 agreement attached to the contract. Doesn't seem to be any community investment levy that's been spoken about, and there's an overage clause in the contract for the development of the house, which means that the developer has to meet certain criteria, and when they're met, then an amount of money gets paid back into the community for community use. Nobody seems to know much about this overage clause, and nobody seems to know much about how much money may come into the park, if any. Steve Melia certainly doesn't. He seems to know very little about the overage clause, unless he's not telling us the truth on that, and he knows more about the Red House deal than he's letting on. But time will tell, and we'll keep an eye out on that one. He says he's supported the development of the former Yew Tree Club. Well, if you remember rightly, we put a petition in on the Yew Tree Club to keep some of it in community ownership and develop part of it, and that is mired in controversy because there are alleged corruption matters with regards to Calco, the selling back of the lease to the council, and the council selling the lease off to the developers. Not all's very clear down there. And then when the houses were developed, the organisation that was managing them had a deal with Birmingham City Council to rehouse some of their residents. And for quite some time we've had a lot of disruption and trouble in that area, and some of it has been because of some of the families that have been transferred from Birmingham. Now everybody's got a right to somewhere to live, but what happened about Sandwell residents first, Sandwell folk first? There are people that are crying out for houses in Sandwell that should be given priority. That was wrong for the council to allow that development to happen in the first place, but also allow that housing management company to do that deal with Birmingham City Council. And he talks about modernisation of council housing. The modernisation is years behind. This was first spoken about as the Better Homes under Sandwell Homes, and Sandwell Homes had a very good reputation. They were award winning. Their services were they weren't 100%, but they were in the high 90s. Sandwell Council decided to take Sandwell Homes back into their operations under their umbrella. That was a political move. It got nothing to do with any issues with regards to service. It was purely political. And since then, the services have deteriorated. The Better Homes was rebranded as the Asset Improvement Programme. and it was the housing area panels that was, and the old officer of Sandwell Homes that pushed that. Steve Melia got nothing to do with that. It was again, that was down to residents, area panels and former officers pushing for what's something that should have been put in place 4 or 5 years ago. So again, it's all smokes and mirrors. He talks about working with schools, and he talks about the rebuild at Yew School. That rebuild's been on the cards for years. The previous head teacher, Mr. Martin, and the governors were very strong and very proactive in sorting that out, and it's taken a long time to get things sorted. It's got nothing to do with Mr. Melia pushing it. It's down to the governors and the head teachers, but we all need to be consulted on the future plans, because the Yew School is a big part of the community, and we all have an investment in it. We need to know what's going to go on. We need to know about the parking. We need to know about the infrastructure, the community use of the school and the infrastructure. Mr. Melia is taking credit for this again. Let's give credit where it's due. The governors and the head teachers there have been excellent, although sometimes they've been shackled by council and councillors. Let's get some truth. And something else to consider in this leaflet, they talk about like protecting libraries and frontline services. On the Yew Tree, we lost a valuable resource. We lost the library, and it's never been really replaced. We've seen youth services cut. We've seen costs increase at community centres. We've seen inadequate children's services receive damning Ofsted reports, and now under government instruction they're in the management of a trust that's cost millions to set up. There are 6,226 child abuse allegations that still have not been properly investigated, and that information has not been come out into the public domain. Have you seen any of these Labour councillors talk about that? No, you haven't. We have a Labour controlled council that's almost £1 billion in debt. A lot of your council tax money goes to repaying interest repayments. That's not the best use of money at all. This is a failing council, and for years there hasn't been enough opposition, there's not been enough accountability, and not enough people have scrutinised what they're doing. The time is now to make a change. On May the 3rd, you've got the opportunity, using your vote, to make a change and vote somebody in that's going to be a voice. Somebody's not scared to stand up to these people, that's not scared to stand up for the community, that's not scared to ask difficult questions, who's not afraid of putting their head above the parapet and having it shot at. Because I'll tell you, I have been shot at, and I'm prepared to have it done again. I've got thick skin. But on May the 3rd, if you lend me your vote, you will see a change. You will see something very different. You will hear a lot more about what's going on, about matters that affect you and you should be involved in. In the meantime though, I'll leave you with this. Should have told the truth. Cheerio.